Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. Welcome to the program. Welcome to the Drew Deeks channel with my good friend Shane Gamal, one of my favorite people on this planet to talk hockey with, specifically our beloved Montreal Canadiens. And the draft combine is over, my friend. Game one of the Stanley Cup Finals is in the books, and we're about 2.5 weeks away from you, my friend, going to Vegas for the draft. Like, this is awesome, man. This is so cool. I'm so friggin' happy for you that you get to go. Like, I know you were at the draft in Montreal, and that's I hope that takes number one in your draft experiences, because there may not be many more draft experiences. There's not going to be, actually, we know for a fact. Yeah. So how pumped are you though to be able to go in and take this one in person, buddy?
Man, it's gonna be something special. I'm traveling with the sick team. We got a good crew going, so it's gonna be a lot of fun. I'm rooming with our good friend Tony Marinaro, so hopefully he doesn't snore.
Yeah, you're about to find out. So
yeah, it's gonna be a blast. I can't wait.
I love it, man. I love it. That's awesome. And yeah, shout out to you guys for just all the work you're doing, still pumping out shows, all the time. And it's fun. It's fun to talk about. June is such a busy month. The last 3 seasons specifically for Canadiens fans have been of special interest because we were drafting so high, and we're hoping that this is one of the last times that we draft this high, but that's how you do a rebuild properly, right? So we're going to talk about the draft combine, which was this past week. And what did we learn about who the Habs could draft at number 5? Did we learn anything new that we didn't know before that will, lean the Canadiens one way or the other when it comes to these prospects in this draft? Trade scenarios. So Shaner is going to put together, he's going to try to either try unintentionally or intentionally to break some Habs fans' hearts here, I think, with some trade scenarios at or before the draft, potentially here. And I have one of my own, which I've already released on X or Twitter. The only one that I foresee actually for the Canadiens right now. So we're going to have some fun talking about this stuff. We're also going to talk about Phil, and I didn't even put up his title in here, so maybe I'll just throw his picture up. But we're actually going to talk about this very specific draft ranking from McKean's Hockey. And I did try to pull up their website, but it's, there is a paid subscription, so we can't access that fully. But what we can access is this top 10 list, which for the second time popped up in our feed today on Twitter, with the Canadiens being the number 4th ranked prospect pool in the NHL. And these are the picks, and it's somehow missing one of, I believe, our top prospects personally. And there's a lot of conversation, Shaner, about Filip Mesar and how he is considered by some to be a wasted draft pick. And I don't get it. I really don't. I don't know who's all on board. I know I see your face over there grimacing because I don't get it. But that's what we're going to talk about today, you guys. We're going to talk about the draft combine. What did we learn? And some trade scenarios for the Habs before and during the draft, perhaps. And also the most underrated Montreal Canadiens prospect, one of them, at least to us. And we're maybe a little bit biased because of this reason right here, Shaner, because Phil is our friend. I don't know if you know, but Phil is our friend. Okay, he's maybe not our friend personally, but Shaner, you interviewed Filip Mesar on the Recruits Draftcast with Grant and got to know him a little bit better, as did those who watched as well. So we'll get to Phil in a little bit, but let's cut to business. Let's get to the draft combine and how this past week was a huge week for NHL teams to decide, or help to encourage them to decide, which players they may draft in the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, up to the 7th round in this draft. And we can start right from the top, which I don't know where that is exactly, because where do you want to start talking about this draft combine? How important, I know I asked you this before, but how important do you feel it is, in order for teams to decide who they're going to take in the draft?
The combine, whether it be the physical exercises or the meetings, can push a player above another, right? Let's say that you got 2 guys that on ice, pretty even, right? Then these could be the deciding factors of who goes before who. on your list. You know, the physical exercise is a bit less because some guys are still a bit injured. They just finished the season. They're not, and other guys have been training for a while. I mean, we saw EJ Emery just crush the combine. Good Lord. Him and Cole Baudouin, physical specimens, just destroyed the physical testing, right? So again, if let's say Caden Lindstrom had been healthier, had been training for this for longer, he could have been in that mix as well. I'm sure other guys too. So I don't put too much stock into that, and neither do NHL teams, I'm sure. By the way, I saw this on Twitter. Sam Dickinson and EJ Emery clocked in at like a 4% body fat, which is like, that makes no sense. It's got to be a mistake because like professional bodybuilders are around like 7. So anyways, if that is true, we're looking at some unicorns, like in a different term, where like I've never seen anything like that. How can you function at 4%? Anyways, beyond that's another topic, but I think obviously the most important part of this combine is the interviews. The teams have 20 minutes or so to really get into these players' heads, see what makes them tick, right? See their thought process and I guess the way they operate. Because obviously you see how they are on the ice. That's fine. You've watched footage. You went to see them play games, but now how does this work? You know what I mean? It's a very, very important thing. As good as a player can be, if he doesn't have the IQ, right? The qualities that you need to be in the NHL, it's not going to matter how good you are, right? So that those interviews are extremely important. And we've heard some crazy stuff come out of these interviews. I mean, Colorado Avalanche were playing board games. They're playing board games in the interviews. Again, I'm not sure what board games. I'm sure there's a good reason for it. I'm no psychologist, right? But that's interesting. The Nashville Predators asked players, if you were drafted into the war, would you be a sniper, a pilot, or a medic?
That's an interesting question.
That is interesting. And I'm sure they ask, why would you choose, say, a sniper? Like, I think that's a lot better than the infamous bank question from the Habs last season. I'm still not over that one.
They had the same psychologist, I heard too. So he was
and,
there again.
Yeah, he was eyeballing these guys, eh? Did you hear? He was on the he was getting in their grill and just looking at them.
I heard about that. Yeah, I heard about that. Yeah,
just trying to pressure them. I actually don't mind that. I think that's a good thing.
It's kind of funny.
See how they respond. See if they're they're confident. They stare back or they move away. I think that's mental games. It's interesting. I think who was it? Utah was asking players about their Uber ratings, which I'd actually really like. I like that idea. You learn a lot from that because if they have a bad passenger rating, that means they're not good to, people around them. I don't know. I think that's outside the box thinking, and you get to know people. You get to know the people, right? Not the player, the person that you're looking at. Interesting tactics there. And obviously the animal question comes up again, which at this point, the players anticipate and they can prepare interesting answers. I mean, Tija Ginla said he was a
Pegasus.
Pegasus. There you go.
Bless you.
Pegasus. Who? Cole Hudson said he was a narwhal.
Can I do a narwhal impression?
From Buddy the Elf? Yeah.
Hi, buddy.
Hi,
Hope you find your dad. Sorry, I had to.
Oh, that's great. That's perfect.
We have one in Niagara Falls. The Winter Festival of Lights has a narwhal in the water. Like
no way.
At the near the brink of near the falls. So anyway,
that's amazing.
I'll show you my elf reenactment. You probably saw it last year. Anyway,
Cole Hudson's a big Buddy the Elf fan, I guess. But that's an interesting. And I mean his reasoning behind that is pretty cool too. He said that narwhals are a rare type of species. You know, I'm
His
rare
answer was
too.
great. Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what? I'll take a bit of credit for this, okay? Because we asked him when he was on the show, we asked him, did you prepare for the question? And he hadn't. So we put him on the spot and he actually said eagle. And I shut him down right away. I said, you cannot say eagle because you're going to BU and your rivals are the BC Eagles. You can't say eagle. He's like, yeah, you're right. You're right. I can't say that. So I got you, Cole. I got you. I think you did well there.
Nice assist, Shaner. That a boy.
Yeah.
He put that puck on a platter for him. Good job.
Gotta help the boys out. But no, I mean, that's as far as we know, right? The players did a few interviews with the media afterwards, which I'm not gonna put too much stock into those, right? The guys looked drained.
They were kind of boring. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean,
except for
personality. Teej with
his
Teej
interview was good. His interview was good. It was interesting.
He had some fire in him, but I think personality award goes to Artem Levshunov. This guy just seemed like a ray of sunshine, really, like just the funnest guy to be around. So he definitely won points in that department, but I'm not going to put too much stock in their media interviews because all of them just look gassed, right? You answer the same questions over and over again for a week straight, and then you go do these physical testings and the VO2 max and all that stuff. I expect you to be drained, right? So, and some of the questions that the media was asking were terrible. So I really don't blame the players there. But I think this was a really interesting draft combine. Actually, I saw somewhere, I'm not sure how accurate this is, but there is apparently a player that showed up to the combine at 38% body fat and had like terrible testing, just awful. And you remember what I said before, right? A player can hurt their rankings with these physical testings. I'm not sure they can increase that much, but they can definitely hurt themselves. So I forget who the player was, but yeah, he's not good. Not good at all. Yeesh.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because I still scrolled through the list on Sportsnet of, who had the best results for what tests and stuff like that. And we know that Caden Lindstrom was limited to, was it just the hand strength?
It's bench press and pull-ups that he did.
Oh, I thought he did the hand grip. But he did hand grip too.
Oh yeah, all the like the measurements and stuff like that, like wingspan, grip strength, all that stuff he did, like because you don't really need to jump or bike or anything like that. Anything lower body like jumping, he didn't do.
Okay, that's what I was getting at. So I saw him and Teej again actually kind of near the top of a few lists for some of these tests. And again, we're not putting like a ton of stock in them, but they matter. But it's all about the interviews, like you said. And I watched as many interviews as I could with all the players, and Zane Parekh and Caden Lindstrom did theirs together. They just seemed kind of gassed. You were kind of getting more robotic answers out of them just because they've answered some of the same questions. I would have liked if somebody would have asked Caden Lindstrom, not just about his health and how he had to, like, I wish somebody would have just asked if he was willing to answer it. Were you able to put any of the teams that were interviewing you, and there were a lot of them, were you able to put any of their minds at ease with your injury situation, with your back situation? And maybe we know what he said. He said that he works out 5-6 times a week and he's doing fine and he's recovering well and everything's good. But I just wanted to know, where were teams' minds put at ease? And maybe we won't find that out until afterwards from the interview footage, if say the Canadiens draft him, because they tend to show footage of interviews of players they drafted, not of the ones that they don't. So that's why I'm curious what kind of answers we're going to get in terms of, if he is available at 5 and they do draft him, what have you. TJ Ginla he's a mini Jerome, right? Like he's again what did I call him? Baby Iggy, or what did we call him? Something like that. Anyway, but he is like a pleasant young man to listen to.
Absolutely.
He can speak. TJ Ginla can speak. He's got that strong personality. Like Lev Shunov, we saw the sense of humor with him and Anthony Martineau specifically. But I mean, I know a lot of us are really focused on, the forward group once again. And I think that this time it is more favorable. The Canadiens should could select a forward, but you got to know some of these guys. I just feel like I got to know TJ Ginla better than the rest of them. The Calgary Flames media team was one of the only teams recording these interviews at the Combine.
Yeah.
So naturally,
That's it.
yeah,
I
go
mean,
ahead though.
shout out to the Flames social media team for
They
providing
posted
us with fantastic content
on their
like they were,
YouTube channel. Everyone's there. Yeah.
exactly, they did great. But this also outlines another deficiency with the NHL. That this should be stuff that the NHL account is posting, not the Calgary Flames. Get it together. Come
Yeah.
on. Like, yeah, anyways. Yeah.
Yeah.
Shout out to the Flames. Well done.
Yeah, it was just nice because you do. I found the Iginla interview, and then everybody else was there too. You told me, so I went and watched the rest of them, and like Berkeley Catton and again Lindstrom and Zane Parekh and even Jerome Iginla had an interview before the weekend was out. Him there with Tej and all that stuff, and I think we're really hyper focused on Tej Iginla right now. It seems like Craig Button, as friend of the Sick podcast, collaborator of the Sick podcast, the way he did his draft rankings or his mock draft was projecting the player down the road and how good of an NHLer they're going to become, not just who he thinks the teams are going to pick, but he has Tej Iginla and Caden Lindstrom right one after the other. So after this combine, in terms of the forward group that you would think the Canadiens are interested in selecting, most likely, I'm not going to be married to it. I know what happened with Ryan Backer and Slavkovsky. I was wrong on both. I'm just asking, should the Canadiens draft a forward, maybe a second forward? We'll get to that after in the trade talk. But do you feel like what did you learn, I guess, is what I'm getting at about, here's the question. What did we learn about who the Habs could draft at number 5? Are you leaning any more towards a certain forward that you would like to see drafted, Shaner, or that you think could be drafted?
I don't know that any of them rose up because of the combine or changed the way that I look at them. I'd say that my wish list that we looked at before is about the same.
And Demidov wasn't there, to be fair, either.
That's right, and that's another good point that we should touch on. He is in Miami rehabbing his knee, so that's why he wasn't there. But he's represented by Dan Milstein, so he's going to have, like, Russian prospects are going to have their own sort of little combine. So that's not a worry. Teams will be able to look at them and talk to them. I don't know when, I don't know where, but it will happen.
In person, though, or online?
Yes,
do you know?
In person.
Really? Okay. Well,
in person.
That's encouraging. That's good for the sake of those who are going to be able to draft the Russians. And we may draft some Russian players, and all the talk back and forth about Demidov if he'll be available at 5, which we don't think he will be. But the fact that a conversation is still important, right?
Listen, at this point, from what we've seen, what we've heard, it wouldn't be shocking if the Chicago Blackhawks went up to the stage and took Artem Levshunov at number 2. Do I think that's the right move? No. I'm a fan of Levshunov, don't get me wrong, but at number 2, when you're passing up on Demidov, I don't think so. But it's entirely possible. They need help on the right side, right? He is, by all accounts, the best defenseman in this draft. I don't know about that, but he's going to be excellent, right? It's not a bad pick. It's just passing up a better pick. Anyways, so if that is the case, Demidov falls. I don't know if Anaheim takes him, right? To me, there's just no, I don't see a world where he falls to 5, but it's a possibility. I mean, The Athletic thinks that's the case, right? It was Corey Pronman who said that he thinks Demidov will go 5. If that's the case, I mean, you stepped in 2 piles of shit. I don't know, like what kind of luck did you just get here? Like this is insane, right? So, I still don't believe that that'll be the case, but anything's possible. It's the draft starts at number 2, right? I think we've said this before, but it's the truth, right? Yeah. There's about 3-4 players that Chicago should be considering and are considering. Caden Lindstrom is in that mix, right? We know they're smaller at forward. They want to get bigger. Lindstrom is the best power forward here. After that, with Anaheim and Columbus, I couldn't tell you at all what they're going to do. We know that Pat Verbeek said that Anaheim would lean towards a right-handed forward or a right-handed D. If Levshunov is gone, do they go Parekh? I don't think they do. They definitely don't go Yakimchuk at 3, right? So then they start looking at forwards. It's going to be a mess. It's going to be a mess, and nobody's going to be able to predict it accurately. But I don't know what I learned about what the Habs could do. One thing we didn't really get much about Beckett Seneca. I thought that was a bit strange. I think you were also looking for maybe a bit more on him.
I was, yeah, for an interview.
Well,
maybe I just didn't find
that's it.
But
A little disappointing in that sense, but I'm sure he's still in that mix. It's really going to depend on who Chicago, Anaheim, and Columbus take. That's as blunt as it can be. I mean, the Habs are powerless almost, being at 5. It's a weird position to be in.
It is, and I do want to bring up a picture of Caden Lindstrom because
unit.
I mean, this guy is he's a beast. He's built already.
Yeah.
At just, is he even 18 years old yet? I don't think he is. Let me just fact check right now and find that out. He is 18. Sorry, yeah. So he's got an earlier birthday on February the 3rd. But I'm gonna pull up this picture because look at this. I'm gonna pull the banner down. Look at the arms on this kid already. I mean,
Dude's built like a tank.
He is built like a tank, and he is arguably the best power forward available in this draft. He's listed as a centerman, and we know, like we mentioned, the injury history or whatnot, but he's listed at what, 6'3", 210 right now, and that's only on Hockey DB, so that may have changed. He's probably closer to 6'4", but I don't have the number in front of me exactly. But the point is now I do want to ask this because height. We know Beckett Seneca shot right up in height. Like that kid grew from, what was it, 5'8" to 6'3" within a matter of
something like that. I think last season he was like 5'10", or the season before that. He went from like 5'10" to
5'10" maybe.
He's about the same height as Lindstrom now. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, so these are big dudes, right? So is size as a player, though, it seems obvious to an extent because you look at the Stanley Cup playoffs, right? And you think about how much size and grit is important in the physicality of the playoffs, and that's what you're trying to project is how these players will help you in the playoffs long term. Caden Lindstrom just looks like he'll be a warrior, and he's got a great shot too, right? They say he's not the fastest skater, maybe, but my gosh, he is a powerhouse. He actually talked a lot about how he believes that he's a very good playmaker, not just a scorer. So if he's available at 5, certainly it's a very good consideration. Now, I remember Snake talking on the Sick podcast the other day, really concerned about the back issues because he's so young. But we don't fully know the answers to that yet. We trust the Canadiens and other NHL teams are going to do their due diligence on that. But if Lindstrom and TJ Gimler are available at 5 and Seneca's available at 5, let's just assume Demidov's taken. At that point, is it between those 3 players for you, Shane, as to who the Canadiens are going to take?
Yes. No disrespect to Berkeley Catton.
Yeah,
I think he's going to be fantastic, and he's still on my wish list. If they pick him at 5, I'm not mad. I'll support the pick, and I think he's got the offensive upside that the Habs have been lacking for a long, long time. But what these 3 players bring is more valuable than what Berkeley Catton brings, unfortunately, or fortunately. I mean, Lindstrom and Iginla are elite puck protectors. They use their body insanely well, right? To have that already, to be good at that already. That's usually something you teach at the NHL level, but they're already like elite at that. That's going to be huge, right? Maybe not the best mobility per se, but they're fine skaters. It's not some people say that they might not be really good. No, that's not true. They're excellent skaters, right? That it's not like elite level. Like, we're not talking McDavid, McKinnon, Larkin type level skating, but you don't need that, right? You can still move around quite well. The skill level is up there for sure. Great shots. I mean, Lindstrom and Iginla have some of the best shots in the entire draft. Seneca has silky mitts. For a big guy like that, it's really impressive. it's, you know what? The more you think about it, you can't go wrong. You really can't. Like, I'm sure a lot of people have their favorite guy, and you're entitled to that, sure, but gotta trust the team, man. These scouts have been doing their due diligence for the entire season. They've been following these guys. They know them better than all of us combined. So whoever they pick at 5, I have full trust in, because it's hard to go wrong here, right? Again, the first 4 picks are going to determine who we pick at 5, but whoever we're left with, it's going to be a good pick. Like,
Yeah,
we're looking good here.
it's exciting, and we're close. We're getting closer and closer, right? So that night is going to be some nerves, like just the good kind of nerves. But I mean,
It's
it's
gonna
going to
be exciting,
be
yeah.
exciting no matter what. And you know what? It's interesting. I was kind of encouraged by something I read about Cole Iserman, which I know you weren't a huge fan of.
Mhm.
But I read, and he's going to be going to Boston University,
Yep.
where like
It's
he's already committed,
fantastic.
right? So he's
That's
going to be
great news.
going to, Lane Hutson's former team, Luke Tuck's
Mhm.
former team, Macklin Celebrini's former team.
Yeah.
So that's a coaching system. That's a coaching team, if you will, a coaching staff that has already begun the process of changing, helping Cole shift the
Mhm.
way that he plays. And that article actually was encouraging. I have to say that his coach asked him, do we want to have you drafted higher, or do we want to try to make you a more complete player no matter where you're drafted? And Cole Iserman accepted the challenge of trying to be a more complete player and play better defensively, which was his biggest criticism.
Yeah.
So to hear that was encouraging for me. So the reason I bring that up, and that's why I want to jump right into this, is trade scenarios for the Habs at or before the draft. So maybe I'll just go into mine real quick, just because I'm already on the topic, right? And then I'll let you break some fans' hearts. So maybe even mine. No, but it's just proposals. We're just having some fun.
Mhm.
But Canadiens fans really want to know, is there going to be another Kirby Doc, Alex Newhook type deal, which we are being led to believe right now, but I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure that there's going to be one just like it. I think that the Canadiens will get creative again
Mhm.
and will make a trade. I think they have no choice. They have to start parting ways with some of these defensemen. It has to happen. You don't have enough room for all these guys. And it might be players that the Canadiens fans, some of them aren't willing to part with, but they're going to have to evaluate who their guys are. So my proposal is very simple, and what I think I could see in terms of the Canadiens making a splash this summer will come at or before the draft, in moving the 26th overall pick and some roster players
Mhm.
and possibly more picks in order to move up in the first round of the draft for a higher second first round pick in the top 15.
Mhm.
The Buffalo Sabres, the New Jersey Devils are 2 teams I'm looking at. Those teams need to get better now, specifically the Sabres, if Kevin Adams wants to
Oh,
keep his job.
Jesus. Yeah.
Yeah, Jesus, take the wheel in Buffalo. So, but seriously, I don't know. Like we actually heard from Eric Engels even too on your show, on the Sick podcast, how so many teams will say, including the Canadiens,
Mhm.
we're open to hearing proposals for trading the first overall pick, the 10th overall pick, every pick in the first round, right?
Yeah.
Top 10 picks, top 10 picks very, very rarely get moved around at the draft, right? So the Canadiens did do it with the Kirby Doc deal. We saw that.
Mhm.
Now, for me, where I think they could make the biggest splash is by moving the 26th pick to move up with 1 or 2 defensemen or other roster players or prospects. So it could be a package of the 26th overall pick, a defenseman, prospects they already have in their system, and then more draft picks. I don't know how
Yeah.
many pieces they would have to move, but if you are able to acquire a Caden Lindstrom and a Cole Iserman, would that not make a splash at the draft? That's just one
Yeah.
example. Maybe it's Caden Lindstrom, and if Beckett Seneca is still around,
Mhm.
you take Beckett Seneca in the top 15. Or somehow if Iggy makes it past Calgary, which he won't,
No.
right? So that's not going to happen. That's not a scenario I'm willing to entertain. But to me, I just look at the Nikas, the Zegras conversations. Those are the two big players that have come around the Canadian circle, and basically they want Gooley and or Reinbacher for Trevor Zegras. Not happening. Not happening. Right? Like you can touch on that. But with Nikas too, like I'm not saying we're good at center. We may draft another center in this draft, and then we got Nick Suzuki, Kirby Doc, or Caden Lindstrom, or TJ Ginla, or insert centerman here. But I'm just envisioning, for me, that's the only real trade that I could come up with, and it's not fully specific. It's a little bit open-ended, right? But I'm just saying, if they decide they are going to trade the 26th pick, which a lot of folks expect them to, that's kind of how I would see them using it, is in an attempt to move up. I think it would cost a fair amount.
It would.
I think it would cost a fair amount. So that's why it would have to be a heck of a package to be enticing enough, or we look at another 3-team trade like they did for Kirby Doc. Do you think it makes sense for the Canadiens to address their top 6 in this way by drafting 2 more potential top 6 players for the future, or one now and trying to trade for one later? Because I think trading for one later could be harder when you have full team control for several years if you draft them. So how do you address the top 6 this year? I don't see it, Shaner. I'm not seeing it in the trade market, but you have some ideas that maybe I don't.
Yeah. The tricky part about moving up is that teams are going to be really careful. And it's been this way since the Sedins. We remember, right? The Vancouver Canucks moved up to get both of them. And look how that turned out. That was a terrible draft. And the Canucks walked out with the 2 best players of that draft. Right. So teams are very, very careful about moving down in the draft. It's not like the NFL where every 2 minutes there's a new trade, right? They're very, very careful. And it's going to cost a lot.
What I'm proposing is not going to happen, is what you're saying. You can say
it might. It might.
Moving up that high is probably hard, right? That's what it sounds like.
It's going to be very difficult.
Top 20, maybe? 15 is a lot harder, right? By the sound. That's I need to be schooled on this a bit, because I might be I might be in fantasy land here, right?
Well,
really.
So we look at pick number 10 with the New Jersey Devils, right? What do they want? What do they need? By all accounts, it's a ready now, high profile goaltender. And it's true. That is what they need. The Habs don't have that. They don't have that. Montembeault is not going to cut it. And you don't want to trade Montembeault anyways, right? The rest of your guys, Dobesh is too young. He doesn't fit that timeline. Primo is not worth a 10th pick. So I think the teams most likely to be able to make a deal with the Devils there are Calgary and Boston. Jacob Markstrom, Linus Ullmark, those guys, in a package would be worth a top 10 pick for the Devils. Okay. So yeah, I'm hoping Kent works his magic. Listen, if that happens, that is a fantastic move. I'd be willing to give up a lot to get that 10th pick, because you're looking at Seneca or Yzerman here, right? And maybe even Catton if he's still there. So
that's what I'm saying.
You can absolutely get a top 6 potential forward at number 10, no doubt about that. And then number 11, Buffalo Sabres, by all accounts, what they'd be looking for is a ready now top 6 forward, which we don't have. Our top 6 forwards are part of our core. They're the guys that we don't want to move on from. So
good point. What about Philly? Philly's 12. I have the order here, so maybe there's better potential, but
Philly needs that pick.
Philly needs
to me, they need to pick there. They're not trading it. They shouldn't. Maybe they will, but I think they absolutely need a center. They need someone to pair up with Michkov. Right now, I'll give you a spoiler warning. I think Konsta Helenius is the guy, but he could go higher. He's the guy that's really hard to classify. But I think Konsta Helenius would be a great pick for Philly at 12. Really good fit. But I think they're going to pick there. I don't see them moving.
What about, all right, keep going down the list. Minnesota Wild. San Jose.
Possible.
San Jose is right after them.
San Jose's picking. They have to pick.
They have to pick. And then Detroit. Detroit is doing a faster rebuild.
Yeah.
they've really went in on, they've accelerated the rebuild, right? So Detroit, maybe an option. St. Louis, not so sure.
At this point
So,
in the draft, though, there is a drop off in the talent available.
okay.
I'd say that the top 14, 15 is where you get the high quality players. Beyond that, there's a decent drop off. So I don't know that I'd be willing to give up that much to just to move up to there.
Okay.
Um,
Got it.
but I do agree with you that I'd be surprised to see the Habs picking at 26. I think somehow they're going to move it. And I actually feel like a Kirby Dach Newhook trade is more likely.
Okay. And maybe it's a player we just haven't heard of. That's what it comes down to, right?
Exactly. They're going to surprise us, Drew. They're going to surprise us. I don't think many people are going to be able to predict what they do. If you went back to 2022 before the draft and you looked, which players could the Habs maybe get here? Nobody would have said Kirby Dach. Nobody, right? Same thing last year. I didn't see anybody predict Alex Newhook to be an option, right? So
yeah,
they're going to pull something out of nowhere, and it's going to surprise a lot of people, and it's going to be a great move. I'm convinced. But I mean, if we want to play this game, there's a few names that come to mind, and no, they're not Martin Necas or Trevor Zegras, and I'll tell you why. The Carolina Hurricanes are going to ask too much for Martin Necas, and he's an RFA, so that contract is going to be hefty. You're looking at the same kind of payday as Caulfield and Suzuki here, which I am not willing to give to him. He's a great player, no doubt about that, but the price is too high. Simple as that. And I don't even think we have what Carolina wants. So I'm crossing him off my list. I'd love to have him on my team, don't get me wrong, but it's not going to happen. Same thing with Zegras. The only way that this is a possibility is if Anaheim drafts a forward at 3 and they feel like they can more easily move on from Zegras and the price goes down. Because right now, it seems to be Goulet or Reinbacher, and you hang up the phone immediately. You hang up immediately. No hesitation, right? You hear those names. Nope, get out of here. So, and I mean, I've seen people online saying, well, you trade Goulet, you draft Dickinson. Dickinson's not there yet. Goulet is. He already is a top pairing defenseman, and he will be for many years. Dickinson has a higher ceiling than Goulet. Absolutely. He's a fantastic defenseman, but he won't be ready until three years, maybe, right? To be where Goulet is. I'm not a fan of that. Not a fan of that. Keep Goulet. Now, if we get into players that maybe make a bit more sense, could be more affordable for the Habs. Well, I don't know about affordable here, but I'll say it anyways. Kent Johnson from the Columbus Blue Jackets is an interesting player that has not really clicked in Columbus, who has just an absurd offensive ceiling. He was picked 5th for a reason. If by any chance this guy's available, I'd be willing to give up quite a bit. Not too much, but quite a bit to get him. I think he'd fit really, really well with the Habs. He's been going up and down with the minors, just hasn't found his footing, his groove in Columbus. I don't think they should move on from him, but if they do, you give up a lot. You give up a lot. I'd be very comfortable with that. This is a high skilled forward that the Habs just haven't had in quite some time. So he's definitely one of my targets. I could make you a trade package, but it wouldn't look at all like what it would be. So I won't even venture into that. You can let us know in the comments, what kind of package would get you Kent Johnson. But he's probably the priciest of the players I'm going to mention to you. Next up is a guy that we've talked about before, Capo Caco from the New York Rangers. Yep. Listen, honestly, I'm starting to get a bit worried with him. It's been 5 years since he was drafted, and he still hasn't really found his groove. Granted, he hasn't been given great opportunities in New York because they are competing, so they're not looking to develop him. If he goes into maybe a development team, could help him, right? The upside is obviously there. Drafted 2nd for a reason, right? He was deemed as a perfect player. I still remember his draft profile on TV before the draft. They said things to work on, nothing. So obviously that's not true, but I thought that was just funny. So
Yeah.
if you could get him at a reasonable price, I'd be more than willing to give him a shot, see what he can do. That's a big skilled forward here. So I'd look into that for sure. Next up is someone who actually asked for a trade recently, and that's Arthur Kaliev from the Los Angeles Kings. Picked in the same year as Cole Caulfield and Alex Newhook and Kirby Dach, again with that 2019 draft class.
I mean,
same with Kako, actually.
Welcome to Montreal.
But, yeah, that's it. We're going to get the entire draft class. But he's a player that, similar to the other guys, hasn't found his footing in LA. The upside is there. It's not as high as the other two I mentioned. He was the first pick in the second round, but a fine player. First or second pick in the second. Anyways,
same number as Owen Beck. So I think first pick of the second round. Yeah.
Was Seattle there yet?
Actually, well, they weren't because it was 2019. So that actually was. I can't do the math.
He's first or second. Yeah, first or second in the second round.
Earlier.
We don't remember.
He's earlier. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it actually says right there. So he's second. Round 2, 33rd overall. We just don't know exactly where. But anyway, the point is somebody will correct us in the comments like you guys always do.
Yeah. So this is a player who's got a heavy shot.
Big guy too. 6'2",
that's
210.
it. But again, still kind of needs to work on using his size properly, I think. But the upside is there if you can mold him into a middle six kind of winger. That could be great value. I think he'd come at a reasonable price too. And, the last player I'll mention is Dylan Holloway from the Edmonton Oilers right now on the Stanley Cup final. All the guys I mentioned, by the way, are RFAs, so they're in need of contracts. Now, Dylan Holloway played with Cole Caulfield at Wisconsin, right? So you got that connection there. Bigger guy. And the skill is there. I mean, he's picked top 15, but I think, Ken Johnson more skilled. I don't know what kind of price he would take. That's just a name that came to mind. Seeing him yesterday, I thought, he's an RFA. He's young. Maybe that could be a good one. But this one's a bit of a longer shot. I don't know about that. But if the possibility is there and the price is right, I would certainly entertain that option.
All right. I like it. I like that. I like it, my friend. Okay, so I'm going to jump right into Filip Mesar. I wasn't sure if we're going to talk about him today, but I did see this list come up again. And yes, we are biased by being fans of Mesar. I just kind of always have been, just based on seeing him play in person. And speaking of the 26th overall pick, Shaner, this is our 26th overall pick from the 2022 draft. As we know, Mr. Filip Mesar of Slovakia, good buddies with our first overall pick, Juraj Slafkovský, as we know. And Slav has said that Mesar is one of the most underrated players that he knows, period.
He is.
And sure, that's biased too, because he's his friend. They're childhood buddies. But we saw his progression this season, specifically with the Kitchener Rangers at the World Juniors, taking it to overtime with less than a minute to go, scoring the game-time goal. The playoff production that Filip Mesar put up with the Kitchener Rangers before being eliminated. But I'm specifically bringing this up again because of this list here from McKeen's Hockey. And you have some issues with this list. So why don't we just let you talk about this list for a moment? And, I'll certainly do the same. But what is the reason you think that it's unjustified maybe that Mesar is not in this top 10 list? Because I've heard him be in other top 10 lists, including Arpon Basu and Marc-Antoine Gaudet of the Godin and Basu notebook on SDPN. So I find it weird that Sean Farrell is ranked as high as he is based on what we've seen of him. So I heard an argument that he had a much better junior career in the US than Filip Mesar has, but Mesar just had his second year playing in North American ice, period. So that's something. He's just going to take him more time. And I just see more skill, more upside, more offensive potential, creativity, great skating by Mesar. So that's my reasons. But what about your reasons, Shane? I want to hear them.
I mean, first of all, I've never been a big fan of prospect rankings because what
Okay.
are you ranking them on? Are you ranking them on potential, right? Their ceiling, or are you ranking them on how they are right now? That makes a big difference to me. So if I'm ranking prospects, I'm ranking them on their potential, what they could become, which is why I think this list is completely wrong. Um, Lane Hudson should be number one in my book. I think he's got the upside to be, one of the next big offensive dynamos on defense in the NHL. And I'd have David Reinbacher right there at number two because I'm looking at the Edmonton Oilers right now, and you see Evan Bouchard and Matthias Ekholm, right? That's what you can expect Lane Hudson and Reinbacher to be. I think that's perfect, actually.
Bring it on.
Like if Reinbacher can be like a Matthias Ekholm, that's huge, huge. So, and I think he can be. I really do. I think those two will complement each other very well. Joshua Roy at 3 is fine. I don't mind that. Logan Mailloux has great upside too. Jacob Fowler as well. Owen Beck, you could argue, could be higher as well, but I like them. I like him at 6. Now, Sean Farrell, I don't know that he has the upside to be the 7th best prospect in the Habs organization. I do like Sean Farrell. I think he has some great value and could carve out a spot in the NHL, but I think Oliver Kapanen has more upside. I think Filip Mesar has more upside than he does. So I'd have those two guys above him. Dobesh probably tops out as a backup goaltender in the NHL. I don't know that he ever becomes really a starter. So fine upside. And Bogdan Konushkov is, again, fine. I'd have Adam Engstrom above him.
Engstrom not on here either.
Yeah, that's it. I think Engstrom has more upside than Konushkov, but he's okay. Probably going to be a bottom pairing defenseman in the NHL. So I don't know. I just have a lot of issues with this list and these lists in general. I think they're pointless for the most part. They don't really bring much value.
Okay. Now, it is saying that the Canadiens are the 4th best prospect pool in the NHL, which isn't a bad thing to hear. That's pretty good. This is before this coming draft, mind you. We're about to add a whole other category of players to the Canadiens, and one could very easily pop into the top 5 if we pick up a great player, which we hope and pray that we do. We're very hopeful that we're going to, as we mentioned earlier. Whoever we end up going with is going to be a good player at 5th overall. The draft starts at 2, which means only 2 more players. 2, 3, 4. Sorry, 3 are going to be picking before us, excluding Macklin Celebrini at number 1. So I just found it very strange how many fans seem to be doubting Filip Mesar and thinking that it's a wasted pick. And I just guess I thought I would bring it up because I just don't understand it. I've only seen Mesar play once in person, and that was in his first year with Kitchener, just after his draft. So, and I saw a player with a lot of offensive potential, with great vision, great hands, great skater, and just natural ability. And the first thing that I thought, honestly, was he could use another year of junior. And then he did. He came back and did a second year just this past season with Kitchener. And we saw his production numbers go up. So let's maybe just pull up Phil's numbers here. And I know it's just still numbers, and it's, only so much can be taken from that. But I mean, in 10 games played with the Rangers in the playoffs, 16 points, 15 assists, 1 goal. I mean, the guy's a playmaker. I mean, isn't the way he plays and what he brings exactly what the Canadiens are missing? And that's offensive creativity. You got Cole Caulfield, who can finish, who's becoming a better 2-way player. Nick Suzuki, Slavkovsky. Mesar just seems to be a very key ingredient to potentially the power play, whether it's PP1 or 2. Even I see him on number 2. Sure, why not? With Owen Beck, insert whatever other forward you want on there. But I just see it. I see Mesar, and I see his talent and ability. I've seen his, and then you look at the World Juniors, and again this year in Kitchener, I've just seen enough that I see the peekaboos. I see what he can become, and even in the preseason, Like the guy reads the play and at a pretty fast level too. So I think it will translate to the NHL. I've seen it. I'm fairly sold on it fairly early here, even though there's lots of time. But I don't know what it is. I'm not trying to just look at it from a biased lens. I'm a fan of Filip Mesar because of what I've seen him do on the ice.
Mm-hmm.
And that's primarily what I'm going off of. So to not see him in the top 10 list just kind of floored me.
Yeah, no, people are overlooking him like crazy. I mean, again,
Why?
I'm there with you. It doesn't make sense. It really doesn't make sense because he's shown that he's elite.
Because he's small. Is it just
probably, but Sean Farrell is too, right? Sean Farrell is about the same size, if not smaller. So
yeah,
that's why that list means nothing to me. It's just a waste of time.
Sean Farrell's smaller.
I'm being blunt, but I think Filip Mesar has top six, middle six upside. I'm not sure that he'll ever be a first line winger, but middle six in the NHL. I'm fairly confident in saying that, whether that be with the Habs or not. Listen, the Habs are going to be loaded at forward very soon, and that might push him out. That might make him expendable. Okay. And listen, he's got value. I'm a big fan of Filip Mesar, so he might actually be better suited somewhere else. If the Habs do keep him, I think he definitely has a spot on the team at some point. He's going to be with Laval this year. I think he's going to do fantastic there. He's going to get top 6 minutes for sure. Power play time. I'd like to see him on a line with Owen Beck, actually. I think that'd be fantastic.
And Sean Farrell?
maybe.
Maybe Luke Tuck. Let's get Luke Tuck in there and get some size.
Sure. Laval's going to have plenty of options. That's for sure.
And Owen Beck is strong. We've heard it from Claude Giroux's mouth.
Yes.
Owen Beck, and that was a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
And now you see Owen Beck. Anyway, but sorry to cut you off.
No, that's it. So I don't know. Mesar, he's got the playmaking skills. Like he is an elite playmaker, strong vision. I don't know that the goal scoring is going to be that good, but I think he could easily put up 40-point seasons in the NHL, even more than that. Maybe you're looking at closer to 50 in his prime. Just a really strong middle six forward, brings energy, brings skill, speed. That's Filip Mesar to me. Yeah.
To me, he's a offensively creative, exciting prospect that we have.
Very exciting, dynamic. Yeah.
Dynamic. Yeah. That's what I mean. Like when it comes to power play and how we really need to up the power play numbers and how bad it's been for forever and ever and ever. That's what I'm projecting for Mesar. That's what I'm seeing, is he's a bit of a specialist in that way. And, he's a leader too. He's a leader for his country. So like he's just like Slavkovsky's evolving too into more of a leader. Mm-hmm. So I guess I just believe in him maybe more than some do. And I think that it's just going to take some great performances and maybe a great season Laval for him to pop and really prove his worth.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm just too excited about him. I don't know. This has happened to me so many times, but I just had this sense about him, and I think he's got it. I think he could be a 10 to 15 goal scorer. And then, like you said, a 40, 50 point guy. I'd be fine with that. Mm-hmm. So that's just what I'm seeing. So that's why I wanted to make the case for Mesar today. But we'll see. I mean, like, he wasn't ready for Laval last year, and they sent him down to the Kitchener Rangers. He developed even more. He upped his numbers. He represented his country again at the World Juniors. He performed in the playoffs. He produced in the playoffs. So I guess for me, and if you look at it from a regular season standpoint, I mean, his numbers did go up in terms of points per game, but they didn't go up. They only went up by 1 point. He had 51 points in his first OHL season with Kitchener in 52 games and 52 points in 45 games. So that's what I mean by the points per game went up. But his plus minus went up quite a bit to +7 from -9 in his first season in the OHL. There's a lot of positives there. I guess it's just, for me, that's just what I see in Phil. Mm-hmm. But we will see ourselves with this season in Laval. So we've gone on longer than I said we would, because we are
always have too much fun,
too passionate, too much fun for us. This is what we do. But I just want to thank everybody for watching, and we're going to end it off here. But Always a blast as usual with Shane and talking about the draft combine, talking about potential trade scenarios, talking about Phil Mesar, and hopefully it'll create some good discussion down below, as it always seems to, because you guys are very faithful to respond to these shows, and just want to thank you for that. And if you would hit like on the video, it does help to support the channel and support it. And if you want to subscribe and see more, Shane and I are here, and we're going to be here again before this draft upcoming, and we're doing this as always. So that's it. Uh, anyway, thanks everybody. Really appreciate it.